All right. Well,
True.
I guess Bob, do you want to tee this thing up? I got your first highlight package ready to roll
Yeah,
on
don't
the
be.
linebackers.
Yeah, so I willfully chose the short straw. I picked up Mark's. I picked up Mark's. Gosh, I don't even know what to call linebacker.
My tilting at windmills.
Yeah, and so I took my turn at tilting at windmills this year because, as Mark said a minute ago, linebacker doesn't seem to be a position that we draft. It also doesn't seem to be a position that we particularly value, and a lot of that probably has to do with the way we play. But I think nearly every fan out there would tell you that linebacker, either right behind offensive line or maybe even shoulder to shoulder with offensive line, is our weakest position group. And I went and I looked. The problem is, unlike cornerback, which is stupidly deep, as Mark just proved, linebacker is not incredibly deep in this draft, especially if you're looking for guys to play in the middle. And playing a 4-2-5 the way we do a lot of times, you're really kind of looking at two middle linebackers instead of an outside guy. The best of the linebacking group this year tend to be edge players, and I don't see us spending a lot of draft capital in terms of edge players on the defensive side. So the first guy that I looked at and kind of grabbed my attention, he's a very interesting prospect. The first thing that grabbed my attention, this is Jack Campbell out of Iowa. The first thing that grabbed my attention is the fact that he's an academic All-American. And
that's the first thing that grabbed your the fact that he's 9 feet tall and 280 pounds.
No. He's only 6'5", 249. But my first thought was, we're getting into Ted Hendricks space here, and I'm okay with that.
He looks like a big white corn-fed guy to me, man.
Well, and he plays for Iowa. So what do you know? I mean, he's a native Iowan. So there you go. He's also the Jack Butkus Award winner this year, and this tells you exactly how not deep the linebacking draft is. The Butkus Award winner for the year is projected to go anywhere from very late first round to mid-late third round. I have seen him mocked all over the place, and every single report says roughly the same thing. His measurables are relatively middle of the road as far as linebackers are concerned, other than the fact that he's 6'5" and 249. 4'6", 40. He didn't do the bench at the combine. I was kind of interested in that. He didn't do it, but the guy's got 2 solid years as a starter with Iowa. He's been a linebacker his entire career at Iowa. He could have been a basketball player. He led his high school team to 2 straight high school championships in the state of Iowa, and was heavily recruited to play basketball at a number of big schools. But he's got a real nose for the ball. He is always in and around the action. He is a thinking man's linebacker. He is also apparently a really good communicator on the field, constantly talking to his teammates, constantly moving guys around. At Iowa, his nickname was Captain Jack, and he's the guy that is all about making sure guys are in the right place, guys are talking, guys are doing the right thing. You see that big wingspan right there. He's pretty decent in pass pro. He's not going to be the guy that goes after the quarterback a lot, even though you're seeing that here. In most of the clips that I watched, he's playing back off the ball, and he's hunting, seeking, and finding in many instances. I think he'd be a great compliment to Jamin Davis. Is one of the reasons that I love this guy. And I could see him, if he's on the board with that second round pick, or if we were to drop way back in the first round because, somebody just offered us stupid amounts to move up, he might be a guy that we look at there. But I'm thinking that 47th pick, I don't think he's going to last to the end of the third round. But I wanted to throw up a name that I thought, was a possibility, at least early day 2, maybe late day 1. And he's kind of that guy. And I just,
Hey, Bob, before you go on, I just want to mention my favorite play in this highlight reel is when he sacks the player in the end zone, and then that's not enough for him for the safety. He drags him through the end zone. I just love that.
Notice
like-
that, did you? Yeah, he gets up and he like walks in like he's dragging a sack of potatoes.
And I like that they showed that like 5 times from 5 different angles.
Yeah, yeah, and again, he it feels like he's got a little bit of a nasty streak, but he's not a showboat for the most part. It's you don't see a lot of the, hey, look at me, look at me. It's he's that, as Mark said, he's that corn-fed guy for maybe it was John. He's that corn-fed guy he's a lunchbox guy, and I just love that about him. And he always seems to be in the
football
right place.
player, right? Football player.
Yes, yeah, he's a football player. The second guy I've got, and I didn't give you a highlight on this guy because I don't know that he's a real possibility, but Washington did meet with him. All of these guys are on the meet list in some way, shape, or form. It may be very informal, but they have had in-person discussions with all 4 of the guys that I picked out. That was a total accident, by the way. I didn't check that list until after I had my list. But Dan Henley out of Washington State, and we're probably looking at a 3rd round pick for him if he lasts to the end of the 3rd round. Maybe he's 6'1", 225, ran a 4.54. He played 1 year at Washington State after 3 years at North Carolina. He's a converted wide receiver. He was recruited as a wide receiver in North Carolina, didn't cut it his first 2 years, and they moved him to linebacker. Made the switch as a junior in 2020. He's better rushing the passer than he is as a pass defender. In fact, he kind of looks like he might be a little bit of a liability in pass defense. But he's sneaky quick. He kind of, I don't know, watching him rush the passer reminded me a little bit of a snake. He just kind of slithers around guys. Very, very, he's an athlete. I don't know if he's a football player, but he is definitely an athlete, and he's probably got the frame to put on a little bit more weight. But I don't know whether they do that or not, because he feels to me a little bit like Jamin Davis. He didn't go to one of the big schools, and he played really well last year, but Jamin Davis played really well at Kentucky, but there was a dearth of experience, and it feels like after only 2 years on defense, maybe Henley's kind of in that same mold, and it scares me a little bit. The third guy is one that I found doing some of the mock drafts for our thread earlier this year, Derek. DeMarvion Overshawn. I've been looking
Very
at
popular
him
name.
Yeah, I've been looking at him for 2 or 3 months now. Actually.
I like that kid. I like him.
Out of Texas. He was recruited out of high school as a safety. Played 2 years for Texas as a safety before they moved him to the linebacker position. If there's a real knock against this kid, it's upper body strength. He only did like 8 or 9 reps at the combine. There's a lot of room for improvement. A couple of you guys, like Mark was talking about, you get him with a professional training staff at a professional table where he's getting
dietitian,
all the right, exactly, all the right meals. And this kid could put on 10 pounds in a hurry and be an amazing addition to the defense. The thing that really kind of floors me is he's great both directions. He's great downhill rushing the passer. Texas used him extensively in blitz packages where he would come on a delayed blitz. Granted, you're looking at YouTube highlights, but the guy never fails to bury the quarterback. He's got great adjustment to whatever the quarterback's doing. He wraps up and he drops the guy. If he can get a hand on him, he stays with it, and it's amazing to watch. The other thing is he's great in coverage. As an ex-safety, he may be one of the best coverage linebackers I've seen coming out of college in a little while. He's always in the right place. He's got enough speed to make up the distance when he gets beat in most cases, and he's got some length, right? He's 6'3", 229. Again, we're talking about an athlete here. He is just a great athlete, but he's got some solid football instincts and looks like he plays the game the right way to me watching the highlights. I feel like he's also one of only 3 linebackers on Washington's top 30 visit list. So they brought him to Ashburn to sit him down and talk to him, as well as having formal discussions at the combine and informal discussions at the Senior Bowl. So he's had multiple meetings with the team, and he's being projected kind of in that space. I feel like we might really legitimately be looking at a linebacker, and that's in that 3, 4, 5 round range, right in the middle of the draft. Feels like he will probably survive to the 4th round, maybe even the 5th round, depending upon how things fall. But I wouldn't be unhappy if they pick this kid up with our compensatory pick at the end of the 3rd.
Bob, when you were watching it, we let go of McCain, right?
Yep.
Did it not jump off the page at you that this guy could be that 3rd safety box?
Yeah.
Tight end covering, running back in the flat guy.
Yeah, his skill set is such that he could almost redefine that Buffalo nickel position as a legit hybrid. I mean, with his size, he's a legitimate linebacker down in the box. But he's got the coverage skills and the speed to play safety still in the NFL. Yeah, absolutely. And there was a moment, there've been more than 1 or 2 moments I've watching him. I've thought, yeah, I wonder if they're targeting him, and that's part of the reason they felt comfortable letting go of McCain is because they think they can get him, or maybe they're thinking about taking him a little higher than, of course, this is crazy time of the year. I'm convinced that NFL teams burn top 30 visits just to throw other people off or burn top 30 visits to set up potential trade value later. I mean, we get into the 4th round and somebody that really wants this guy is looking at Washington and going, they had him in for a visit and they're picking three slots above us. Let me throw 3 draft picks at him and see if I can get him to move 3 places. Right. I don't know. But anyway, that's my 3rd guy. And then my 4th guy's just kind of came out of nowhere on me. And I'm going to mess his name up. I think it's Savosia Dennis, and he plays out of Pittsburgh. He's 6 feet even, 226, did a 4.64. He's projected late in the draft, 6th round, maybe even 7th round. This guy is definitely a box linebacker. He is not a coverage linebacker at this point in time. In fact, he's probably a liability in coverage. But he's got a pretty good nose for the football. He also has a solid blitz instinct, as you can see watching these packages. He's definitely a downhill kind of guy, and seriously, I see him as very possibly a special team star if they were to pick this guy up. I mean, I still remember when linebackers made up the core of your special teams group. Doesn't seem to be that way with Washington anymore, and oftentimes not even a lot of teams. But this guy's got kind of that nasty special team streak. He sees the entirety of the field. That's one of the big things that people are touting as a strength, is that while he doesn't have the instant reaction that some other guys do, he's a little cerebral and he sees everything that's going on around him. And playing special teams might very well be one of those places he makes his mark, but he could totally be like a 1st, 2nd down guy on the defense. But there you go. 4 names to watch.
Is that a C on his chest?
Yeah.
Defensive captain at Pitt?
Yep, I believe so.
So, Bob, I just wanted to mention one thing because I was sitting here thinking, okay, one of the guys you mentioned, I think it was Campbell, reminded me of like a bigger, stronger, faster, more aggressive Cole Holcomb. And so I was thinking, as you were talking about, we lost Cole Holcomb, whether you loved Cole Holcomb or not. And they brought in Cody Barton, who's supposed to be the next big thing, right? Like,
right.
And maybe he will be. I hope he will be. But if he turns out to just be a guy, or just to be basically a replacement for Holcomb, who was a notch down from what we really needed, I feel like, then we could still be in trouble, even if we don't use linebackers a lot in our scheme. The cupboard is still pretty bare. So I don't know.
No, you're not wrong, and that's part of the reason I think that I really like Jack Campbell. He looks like a bigger, stronger, faster version of Holcomb, just like you said, and maybe a little more cerebral. And Holcomb was he was the signal caller, before he went out this last year. And I could totally see Campbell, maybe not as a rookie, but certainly down the road, being that guy. He's got the communication skills, according to everything I read. He inspires a tremendous amount of respect amongst his teammates, never takes a play off, and he understands the game at a very basic level, that a lot of the athletes who just rely on their special physical tools don't necessarily have.
Funny, Bob, while you were doing the linebackers, I was thinking in terms of what I was saying about corners and all the other positions in a transitional situation like we may be, where you're bringing in guys for 1 year. What seems to make sense for this year and this coaching staff are guys like Overshawn, and I mean, we've been doing that for years, right? In our 4-2-5, you want guys like Kaliki Hudson out there, and you want guys like Overshawn who've got the wheels and the range to maybe do Buffalo nickel type work and fill in against the run and maybe cover some out of the backfield. If I'm looking long term for who's a versatile guy you'd like to have on your team, maybe a year or two from now, if Jack Del Rio is no longer here and we're going back to a more traditional 4-3, Campbell's intriguing as hell to me as a second day pick.
Yep.
Because that looks like a guy who could play in a lot of systems. He might have middle linebacker written all over him. And so I'm a little torn. If I would not be unhappy at all to see him in the second or third round, depending on what we do, obviously in the first, but that would be a solid pick. And then in terms of what we do for this team, some of those smaller, quicker guys, I mean, we'll be taking somebody. I'm looking at our linebacker room. They're going to be drafting somebody. My guess it's going to be more the smaller guys than a big guy like Campbell, though.
Yeah. So I looked at all three of the guys. Washington has only had top 30 visits with 3 linebackers. Two of them are middle round guys, Overshawn and who was, hang on, I got the list here somewhere. List of Washington's. No, that's our draft picks. Let's drop there's where I put it. Overshawn and a kid named something Williams. Who is it? Out of Dorian Williams out of Tulane. And I've actually seen him mocked to Washington in the 4th round a couple of places. Both Williams and Overshawn are like middle of the draft guys. And then the third guy, Kyle Sowell out of Arizona State, is currently considered in every list I can find him in, an undrafted free agent.
I'm pretty sure that's Penny.
List.
I'm pretty sure that's Penny Sewell's little family member too.
So,
tackle.
what that tells me is I don't know. I don't believe we're looking at a linebacker above the 3rd round at best. That's what this list tells me. But it may also be what Washington wants this list to say to people.
Yeah.